Now, Ukraine is accusing Russia of continuing to shell areas that were meant to be safe for civilians to flee. Evacuations from the city of Mariupol have been halted again, with only a few hundred people managing to escape. Newshub Europe correspondent Lisette Raymer joins me now from Lviv. Lisette, these were meant to be humanitarian corridors that were safe during a ceasefire, but it appears that has broken down.
Yes, absolutely devastating for all of those in this community. A town of 400,000. They have been living in the last 5 days without power, without water, without heaters. It is freezing cold in Ukraine at the moment. So for these people, for these civilians, it's really urgent that they get to that aid that they so badly need. There was discussion and hope that perhaps the peace talks had resulted in a small win, that being these humanitarian corridors, these areas where the civilians could be evacuated and there would be a ceasefire. But as you say, it was the second day today that they attempted one of these evacuations, and the shelling resumed very quickly, virtually within an hour of the supposed evacuations meant to be beginning. So an absolutely devastating blow for the people of Ukraine, and certainly a huge breakdown in what people had hoped was a step forward in these peace talks. It is again playing into that narrative that Ukrainians already feel so strongly that Putin cannot be trusted, and any agreements they make with Russia simply fall through.
And you say it's freezing cold there. I mean, these people who are trying to flee must be attempting to get out by train, but we've heard stories of people walking. This must be a really concerning health crisis for people now too.
Absolutely. I mean, the issue is just compounding every day. There are so many ongoing issues that are going to come from this war, and the refugee crisis and the health issues that are coming with what these refugees are doing to get out of their towns and get to safety cannot be understated. It is around -5 degrees. As I've said, some of those towns do not have heating, haven't had power for several days. So already before they're even trying to evacuate, the risk is great to their health. There has already been the call from humanitarian organisations that it is so urgent that these civilians get the help they need, because they can and they will freeze to death. So it is a very serious, very urgent crisis at the moment, and any hope that those peace talks can amount to some progress is fading very quickly. But that being said, it is hoped that there will be round 3 of the peace talks Monday our time, so tomorrow.
Right. Anyone who will have seen your stories at the weekend would have seen that there's still quite a number of people in Lviv staying behind to help with either the military effort, in whatever way they can, in terms of supplies or the humanitarian aid. Are these all people who have just decided not to leave, or are they delaying their exit?
There's a real combination. No male between the age of 18 and 60 can leave, because they're required to stay in case they are needed to be called upon to serve in the army. So that is why so many of the men remain here. They've sent their children and their wives to safety, but they've remained here because that is the law. They simply cannot leave. Then you do have a whole portion of society who doesn't want to leave. They feel very strongly that they aren't going to be bullied out of their country. They are not going to let Russia scare them into fleeing, and so that is why they are staying here. And while they might not, some of them be men, the females, they want to stay and help in any other way, which is why we're seeing them help with, collecting provisions, starting fundraising efforts. We met one group today who had started selling and designing and selling T-shirts, fight for, like Ukrainians, they read, and they're selling them around the world to try and raise money that then they send to the army to help fund things like ammunition, because the Ukrainian forces don't even have enough bullets. So everyone is trying their best to contribute in some small way, because the feeling here on the ground is that a lot of the world has abandoned them, not so much a people-to-people level, but certainly in terms of what NATO is offering and the boots on the ground. So Ukrainians feel very passionately that if anyone is going to stand up and fight for them, it has to be themselves. So that is why there are so many people still here and fighting that good fight.
And people who must feel particularly under threat right now are people in the capital, in Kyiv. Do you know how close Russian forces are to descending on the city there?
They are incredibly close. They have been closing in for several days now. I understand they're within around 25 kilometres at the moment of the main centre, and we've seen recently, yesterday in fact, the train station here in Lviv was just overflowing with people from Kyiv. The level of fear, the level of destruction and damage that has been inflicted in the capital city is unbelievable. People in the train station talking about hearing and feeling their homes shake from the bombings all throughout the evening and not being able to sleep, not being able to think straight, and really fleeing for their lives. So certainly the level of fear and just the deep-seated worry that those Ukrainians were feeling is reached another level. And I think Russia has always wanted, the idea and the expectation from the West at least was that Russia wanted to take over Kyiv, and once they had the fall of the capital they would be able to overthrow the government. So that remains a huge focus point for Russia.
Newshub Europe correspondent Lisette Raymer, thanks very much again for joining us.